All right, everybody. Hello. This is the Arthur of Gaming here, and we are here for another 10-question interview, Dungeons and Dragons style, with my guest Richard Quiner from RPG Daily. Say hi there, Richard, and how people can find you.
Hey, thanks for having me, Arthur. I'm like you said, I'm Richard Quiner. I run the YouTube channel RPG Daily, where post videos every day, helping dungeon masters learn how to run their games a little better, or even if they're just getting started, how to do the basics. And now I'm starting to interview people just kind of like this. So yeah,
Kind of, kind of piggybacking off each other here.
hey, that's what it's all about,
That's
right?
right, man. Absolutely. All right, easy first question for you.
All
Well,
right.
not so easy. This is one of my hard things to do when I'm playing D&D. So, what is your process when you're naming a character?
Oh, I've recently got into looking at the 80s movies and coming up. I look at those for a lot of inspiration. Like I recently introduced a blacksmith named Nash Brogdon and a villain named Hannity McDonough. And so I look at like the old 80s movies, and those they've always had interesting names that are very memorable. So that's kind of where I kind of draw inspiration. If I think of a name and it just sticks with me, then I'm like, that's a good one. And if it doesn't, if it's hard to say or if I easily forget it, then I pass. But I don't really have a process in terms of like coming up with a deeper meaning for the names because I found my characters don't look into that much, or my
Right.
players don't look into that.
No, that's good
So
though.
I
I mean,
avoid that.
that's it. Hey, that's definitely a process. That's a way to do it. I hadn't thought about that yet. So that's a good way to go, I guess.
Yeah, it keeps it simple for me where
Right.
I don't get too deep into it. And then if I don't use the name when I think I would use it, then I don't feel so butthurt if the characters don't, look at that or interact with that NPC.
Right. Now, do you do this just for NPCs or do you do this for characters that you play as well?
Oh, for characters I play, that is a little different. I do try to come up with some sort of meaning. I don't play that often, which is kind of the weird thing. I've only played in a couple, like 3 campaigns. So I usually try to come up with some sort of meaning and build off of that using, the Latin type of terms that exist out there, or I just come up with something fun. It's kind of a 6 of one, half a dozen of the other kind of situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Latin is one that I tend to delve into a bit too when I'm looking for names for things or people.
Yeah, it's a nice language to make something that's relatively simple sound more complex and more interesting than it actually is.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
So it's
Um,
fun.
yeah. So, question number two: what is your most memorable critical success?
Oh, that's a tough one. I don't get a lot of critical successes. I think
Either as a player or as a dungeon master, if you had a good
right.
critical against somebody else.
Um, this is tough. Well, as a dungeon master, I rarely get critical successes, so I'll just pass on that side of it. As a player, I've had there was actually one in my very first campaign in like my third session. I had was able to. We were in a fight. We were playing Princes of the Apocalypse, and we had to go to Lance Rock, and we had to fight this guy under there. I forgot his name. We didn't have even bother. We just found him and killed him. Um,
Of course.
and I just remember I was the rogue at the time, and this is my third session playing. I'm playing in this group with a whole bunch of actors, and so it was kind of intimidating. I'm not an actor. I'm just a guy. But everyone was really getting into it, and my turn came up, and I was able to get like the crit roll, and I went in to kill the guy, and I chopped his face off with a rapier, which was like, all right, I'll take it. I don't mind that. And I think that was like the only critical success I've had since. Like that feels like the only one I actually remember
Well,
was
that's a
that
good
one.
one.
It could be because it was so early on that it was like a memorable, like, yeah, we did this kind of thing. And since then, there's been a lot. So maybe that's why it's my most memorable.
Hey, that totally works. And
Yeah, I
then,
mean, that was part of the reason I'm here today doing this was that
right.
face chop.
Well, it's kind of like they say about golf. It's one good hit that brings you back the next time. You
Yeah.
could duff 40 of them in the woods, but you get that one nice hit down the middle of the fairway, and you're like, I'm coming back for more. So it's that
Yeah.
kind of similar thing. One good, cool thing to have happen, and then all of a sudden you're like, I got to play again.
Yeah. And then you're hundreds of dollars later, you're
Hundreds, only
wondering,
hundreds.
well, I don't talk about it.
Thousands of dollars later. Yeah, I
Yeah,
hear ya.
you
I
know.
hear ya. And then flip that coin over. What is your most memorable critical failure?
Ooh. This one is actually from my DMing experience. I had a session where I was putting my players up against a minor big bad guy. This was a nemesis of one of the characters. Like this guy, they hated him. They were gonna kick his ass. It was gonna be a brutal fight, and I had planned this thing perfectly. It was, he's the most perfectly balanced for this party kind of character I created. And then we get into it, and the fight starts. And I think in the first 3 rounds, I rolled 9 nat 1s.
Oh, no.
In attacks against the players. And the players were rolling nat 20s like the whole night. So they took what was supposed to be about a 2-hour, knockdown, drag out fight, and they finished it in about a half an hour. Because it was like, I'm here, I'm attacking, I'm rolling a nat 1. I'm like, well, that's my turn, on to the next. And so the players moved quickly and just destroyed this guy. And I sat there with each of my dice. As I rolled a nat 1, I would put it in a little dice jail. And then I ran out of D20s.
I had to start over.
And so I had to, they had to get out of jail and try again. It was brutal, but it was very memorable, and my players loved it, and they really enjoyed that I had that much bad luck in one night.
Well, I mean, that's really the goal, right? The goal is just to have fun, whether or not and as a DM, you know your best laid plans are always going to get thwarted somehow, generally by your stupid players who mess it all up on you.
Yeah, and it's always this bittersweet moment when you have those plans and it goes wrong, because you're like, yay, the players are winning, and I don't feel like I'm, pushing them too hard or going to actually be a threat, and they're going to be heroes in this moment, because some players like that. Yep. Other players, not so much. My players enjoy being the epic hero that can take out anything. But having that, it was bittersweet, because I'm like, oh, dang it, I didn't get to do it. But then at the same time, I was like, you know what? Yeah. Bad luck. Make them be even more cool, tough heroes.
That's right. That works.
Yep. It's an emotional roller coaster, really.
Well, let's finish going with that emotional roller coaster.
Yeah.
What's your most memorable character death?
As in mine?
Yours or a player's that you've killed, whichever one.
I've only ever killed one character, not a player. The player's still fine.
Right, yes. I hope not a player. Right.
So I'm going to have to go with that story. There was a character this was my very first campaign. I was running, or attempting to run, the Lost Mine of Phandelver, and the party decided they weren't going to stick around and finish the campaign, so they were going to Neverwinter instead to see what was going on there. And one of the characters decided in their backstory, they had written a connection into the Lost Mine of Phandelver characters, the NPCs. So they were more motivated to go finish this quest and find people. So they ended up going, they hunted down and found the Wave Echo Cave, which is kind of the hideout. And they went in there alone. They were very adamant that they were going to leave the party and go in there alone. So needless to say, it changed things up a little bit and had them approached by the big bad very early on, because I was kind of like, well, maybe they'll run away. They did not run away. No. They were too honorable to their word, and they stayed, and we had this knockdown, drag out fight. This one was a one-on-one kind of thing. It only took us about 20 minutes, but it was really brutal, where the big bad was hitting him. He was hitting the big bad. It was really down to one round of combat would have changed everything. And he got knocked down, and then he ended up failing the death saves. And that was it. That was his body was dumped into a ditch outside the cave, where he then drew inspiration for his next character to be a character that had found that body or had some connection to that previous character. So now that player is running around with a bard, and he's singing songs about his first character. So it's pretty interesting, but that was my one and only character death so far.
Well, that's pretty good though. I mean,
so far.
it is nice. Like I try and tell like my son specifically, he tends to like to always succeed in everything, and I'm like
Hmm.
your much better stories come from when you fail. Like
Yeah.
I'm gonna do this interview with him at some point in time soon too, because I know his stories will be much better when he talks about the failures he's had instead of the successes. Oh yeah, I hit the guy is not as exciting as I went to hit the guy and I lost my sword and that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah, that's really true. The failures lead to some great moments and epic comebacks.
Yeah,
The epic
absolutely.
heroic return to form.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
All right. Tell me about your favorite character of all time.
of all time.
Yipper.
Who I have a character that he's not a Dungeons and Dragons character. He is part of a game system called Anisadora, which is being created still. Um, the game creators invited a whole group of people to come do a playtest with them. And it's set in kind of a post-apocalyptic world of, the gods are cybernetic aliens that crashed into the planet, and the whole world is based on these religious beliefs kind of things. But I created a character who was a 75-year-old man who had never left home. So he was the guy. He was his parents were his roommates his entire life. He lived in their basement, and then at the start of the adventure was like he's leaving home to go out into the world for the very first time. So he was completely inept at a lot of things, and uh, his main skill was always to make people feel sorry for him. It was like an empathy thing. And so he was always getting into these situations where he'd approach some guards trying to cause a distraction, and then he'd have to pee his pants to sell the lie. And it was just always very sad. And he was kind of this pathetic character that then became the party's like pet. Like it's kind of like that poor, mangy dog that won't go away,
Yeah.
but then you feel sorry for it and you got to take it in. He became that kind of character to the party.
Nice.
Um, but then I also made him so he had a lot of heart and he was very clingy, I guess, to his friends. So he became a very good friend of a lot of the party. That one was my favorite. His name is Harvold the Half Human because he also has feathers instead of hair. But that one is probably my most memorable and enjoyable one to play.
Nice. Very, very, very cool. Makes me think of I've had two friends who played old characters. One of them was playing, I think it was third edition, and he played a knight who was in his 70s, and his squire was like this guy who had an arrow of or a shield of missile attraction. So he'd stand next to him. So anytime anybody shot an arrow at the knight, it would hit his shield instead. And then so he ran around as like this 75-year-old knight, trying to at first level, right, trying to do stuff.
Yeah.
And then another guy, we just started a champions game, so superheroes, and we all decided to name ourselves after cities. So and kind of make a character based after a city.
Based
So
on a city. Nice.
people did like one guy did Chicago and did all like wind and water powers, and I did San Diego, and my character is from the zoo, so he like turns into different animals and that kind of stuff. And the one guy decided to name his guy Snowbird, and he's an 85-year-old superhero who lives down in Florida. So
That's pretty good.
playing something really old and
Yeah.
weird can be certainly interesting to do.
It's always fun. And I also like with my character, I enjoyed the idea of breaking the mold. Usually the old people are the wise and very learned. And I liked the idea for that character specifically. I was like, I'm going to make him just dumb
Yeah,
and not very wise in the things of the world, which goes against type for old people,
yeah,
which is why I enjoyed that. Yeah.
yeah.
But
I
old is
played.
fun.
Yeah, I played a character in Eberron in third edition, and he was an artificer, and he was like a Cannith kid. Like his mom was like high up in the Cannith guild, and he was like brand new. I ended up playing him like 17th level, but I always played him as like this naive, sheltered boy.
Hmm.
All the way through. Like he didn't understand things, and we had some pretty good party dynamics weird conversations because he tried to make the one of the other women in the party feel better because they were mad at him, so he brought them cookies, and they got all frustrated with him. He's like, but girls like cookies, doesn't that make you feel better? Stuff like that. And playing just like this completely naive kid was kind of fun. It was interesting and different and fun to play.
Yeah, I can see that being frustrating, but also kind of fun for that party to babysit. Nice.
All right, so going to your gaming group, like your regular gaming group, what is your regular gaming group like? Like as far as when I grew up playing Dungeons and Dragons back in the 80s, the early 80s, it was always just a bunch of straight white guys sitting around a table playing Dungeons and Dragons. And I feel like, especially with 5th edition, it's kind of flipped the script, right? We're getting a lot of women playing. We're getting people who are not white playing, different ethnic backgrounds playing. So what is your regular gaming group like?
My most regular is the one where I'm just a player, which we've been playing now for going on 4 years in October. And that one it's moderately mixed up, you could say. We have a mix. We have about 3 guys in the group, and we have 3 girls that show up on occasion. 2 of them are always there, and 1 shows up sometimes. And the dungeon master is a female. Kelly D'Angelo, she does a lot of Girls Guts Glory. She's our dungeon master.
Cool.
So it's a kind of a fun group, and we get to play around a lot with that sort of thing a little bit. It's kind of an interesting topic, though, thinking about that, because in that group, the guys, we are all a bunch of straight white guys. We all look the same, almost. There are 2 of us when we show up, and I'm wearing my glasses. He has his glasses. We're like the same person. Mm-hmm. And then the other guy is tall and from Florida or something. So he looks very different. But we've brought out a lot of different, diversity. We brought in a lot of variety with our characters and how our characters act and who they are through the game, which that's been a lot of fun, in my opinion, getting a chance to play around with stuff like that.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, it's just I love it. I love how how much more commonplace Dungeons and Dragons has become, how much more we're seeing from different ethnic backgrounds, people who girls playing. Like I've had a D&D group that was me and 6 women, and it was fun. It was It was interesting to see, having played so many hundreds of hours of Dungeons and Dragons with just dudes, to then play with just women and see exactly how they tackle problems completely differently. Which was kind of cool, so I'm always interested as to how people's gaming groups are and what they do.
Yeah, hopefully someday, like the games I run are a bunch of guys. Yeah. I have 2 campaigns that I run semi-regularly, like every other week or so, and they're just a bunch of guys. But getting some females involved and having a campaign that's a little more variety of viewpoints is something that's kind of on my list of things I need to do.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. So, in the same vein of this, and this may be your regular game group you were just speaking of, or it might be a different. But what's your most diverse group that you've ever played in?
Oh, that would be that same one, the one I currently play with a lot. Yeah, the other ones are very much a bunch of the same person. So, like one group is a bunch of guys who are getting into their 40s, and they're all the same guy. They all grew up together. And then another one are a bunch of my college friends, and we're all around the same age, and we're just a bunch of guys. So the other 2 groups are very similar. So that first one, the main one I play with, is the most variety, the most interesting dynamic in that group.
Nice, very good. Mm-hmm. What is the largest group of people that you've ever played with, and where?
My very first campaign that I tried running, I was being very open and very cocky, I guess you could say. And so one night I had 12 players sitting around my table trying to play. It did not go very well. Since then, we tried. We tried. I think that happened. And then back when I was in college, when I tried playing playing 4th edition when I was in college, and I had a DM, and we would have really long sessions. It would be on a Sunday, and it would go for almost 12 hours in a session.
Nice.
But that DM and the way they were running things also allowed for a much larger group to show up. So I vaguely remember one time being about 14 or 15 players there that day, which meant one round of combat took us almost 2 hours.
Yeah, it took forever.
And 4th edition, there was a lot of stuff going on. So that game for me, that like I always tell that story, it's like it didn't stick. But I think maybe that group size might have been part of it.
Yeah.
And then I should have learned my lesson then, don't have huge groups.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot of work.
It is.
Though I do like the idea of a West Marches style campaign.
Yeah.
The Matt Colville, his system was the one I heard about it. So that one is interesting to me, but that one again keeps the group small in that shared world.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Last 2 questions.
Wow, that was fast.
I know,
That's
really
already
fast, isn't it? What's your favorite spell and why?
Ooh. It's really tough because I don't play spellcasters. I haven't had that chance, but I have looked into spells quite a bit. Favorite spell. I'm really fond of Bless.
Mm-hmm. Great.
It's not fancy. It's not a special, spectacular spell, but at least in combat situations, it can turn things around for a group in an instant.
Absolutely.
And I've seen that used a lot. I've got to use it once. I think that's probably one, if ever I play a cleric, I'm like, I got to have it. Yep. I got to have my Bless.
Yeah, Bless is great. And then the opposite, Bane, also is just amazing. Like those two are, yeah. If I have a character and they have access to Bless and Bane, they carry them almost all the time.
Yeah, and then you're like unstoppable.
Spells. Yeah, they're so good. Just such good spells. All right, and then last but not least, what is your favorite magic item and why?
I have one that I'm really fond of because it became such a weird staple for one of my characters, and it's the robe of useful items.
Mm-hmm.
I believe is what it was called.
Yep.
Where you have the patches and you pull the patches off and they have different things. And that one, I got that once for my birthday. My DM had a thing where she would give us magic items on our birthdays in the game.
Nice.
So our real life birthday. So I got that one year, and now my character just wears it all the time, even though it has no more patches on it. It's worn out. It's raggedy and kind of gross looking, but that one very quickly became my favorite. I like to picture it as like a robe from a hotel, but just overused and kind of mangy. And it's just my signature thing. I take care of it all the time. If I'm going into a fight, I take it off. I set it off to the side where it won't get damaged. And then I can fight without the robe getting in the way. So I think that one's my favorite. Yeah.
Nice. I thought you were gonna say like a Hugh Hefner like smoking jacket or something.
Oh,
that'd be kind of funny too.
Man, if I could go back 2 years, I might change it.
You can pull the pipe out of one pocket.
Yeah, that would have been cool. Oh, that would have worked really well for my character at that. That wears that. But I stuck with the
next one. You can do it.
Yeah, the next time.
The next character, you can get it and have that be.
Yeah.
Look for it.
Yeah, I got a birthday next year. Hopefully, I'll just put that. I'll give that to my dungeon master.
This one's worn out. There's no patches left, so
I've run out of patches. The only thing with that is it came with a mastiff, and I'm not like a ranger. I'm not a beastmaster, and so I have this dog that's just running around, and I don't know what to do with it. I'm always just like sending it away from fights because mastiffs are, when you're level 11, a mastiff is basically useless in a fight. So you just gotta like send them home. My party does have a farm, so I think I'll do that.
There you go. See, I had a game many years ago. I think it was 2nd edition Dungeons and Dragons, I think, and we were going through, these modules that we were playing, and my brother-in-law was playing with us, and he had at first level hired a dog because you could buy a dog. So he bought this dog, named it Cat Food. So the dog's name was Cat Food. That dog lasted for the entire campaign during combat the entire time. And And what we ended up after, like, once the players had like 6th or 7th level, and I could not kill this dog. I literally, if I would swing at it, my dice would roll low. If I did hit it, they would rush to heal the dog. Like, as soon as the dog took any damage, the cleric was healing the damn dog. I
Oh,
would not,
jeez.
and I would attack the dog outright, and they wouldn't let the dog die. So finally, after like 6th or 7th level, I think it was, I started giving the dog fighter levels.
Oh,
And so
nice.
when they would level, the dog would gain a level in fighter, and so eventually the dog ended up being like a 7th or 8th level fighter, running around with his master, and it was just my brother-in-law still talks about it, and that was probably 20 years ago, and he still talks about it to this day, how he had his dog cat food. So,
That's kind of cool. I think that's a good idea. Like with pets like that, I don't think they really have that system in 5th edition, except for Beastmaster gets some stuff. But I think that'd be really fun
yeah,
to
I don't
throw
see
that.
why
I
not.
have some players who are trying to get pets,
Yeah.
and so I'm like, maybe I'll throw that in there so their pet can be useful and not just dead weight.
Right, because like you
Yeah,
said, once you get to a certain level, it's like, why bother
yeah,
having the dog? At level 11, a mastiff is no good to you.
yeah.
So, yeah,
It's just something extra to think about.
you do a whole campaign based on people with their characters and their pets. Call it like
I've
the
seen
Life of Pets
ideas.
campaign.
Yeah, I've seen ideas. There's one where they have it so characters are the animals.
Right.
And then I heard about one person had an idea where they were like, the players make a character, and then what they actually play is that character's pet going to find their master. And so it's an adventure party of just the pets searching for their owners.
Right. Nice. That'd be fun. That'd be
That'd
fun
be
too.
fun. That'd be
Yeah.
fun. Yeah.
But anyway, thank you. 10
You're
question review.
welcome.
You did a good job. Everything.
All right, I
liked your
pass.
answers. Yeah, I think so. I think you got a passing
Sweet.
grade, at least a B plus or so.
I was not a good tester growing up.
I think you did just fine. Give everybody a shout out again, and let them know where they can find you again.
Yeah, mainly all the time on youtube.com/c/RPGDaily. That's the link to my YouTube channel. You can also find me on Instagram at the RPG Daily, and Twitter, also the same. So that's where I'm at. I'm all over those, mostly on YouTube though.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I went to your channel the other day, and guys, he's got tons of stuff up there. He's got tons of content, very cool stuff up there. So definitely
So
go
many
check
videos.
him out there. And as always, guys, you can find me at the Arthur of Gaming on like Instagram as well. My YouTube channel, the Arthur of Gaming. Like this video, subscribe, comment in the bottom. Let us know what you liked, didn't like, what kind of things you might want to see. And as always, guys, it's a very dangerous world out there, so stay safe.